And it was really fun. And I think that's when I fell in love with real estate, because I was able to use my design background and kind of combine this hands-on approach where I could do both at the same time.
Ed here. I'm here with Lindsey Johnson. She's out of our Highland Park office. Lindsey has been with RE/MAX Results for about 2.5 years now and been in the business since 2017.
Yep.
And we're going to talk today about a number of things, including what she does, how she helps her clients design high-end rentals and use them as investment properties. And we're going to get into all that, but first, we got to go back. And we're going to have to tell me, where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Des Moines, Iowa, actually.
Okay.
Yep.
And that's all you got to say about that?
Yeah, pretty much. I moved to the Twin Cities in 2007, just after going to Iowa State for design. And it was a great place to grow up, but I wanted to be in a bigger cultured space where I was influenced by artists and designers. And so that's why I moved to the Twin Cities.
Okay. Now, Des Moines is huge.
It's
like 1 million people, right?
I kind of compare it to like St. Paul.
Okay.
It's definitely growing, and it's got new things popping up here and there, new restaurant scenes, and I really enjoy going back, but it's the Twin Cities is just, there's just more people here. There's more diversity.
Yeah. Which is that because like it's just Des Moines and there's no suburbs to it?
There's suburbs, and it's definitely growing. I grew up right outside of Des Moines,
okay,
in a suburb. But yeah, I don't have anything negative to say about it. I think when I say I'm from Iowa, a lot of people crack corn jokes and stuff, but so. All
right. So and you went to Iowa State and you studied design.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
I always knew I wanted to be an artist or a designer. When I was growing up, the question of like, what do you want to be when you grow up? It was like, oh, I'm just going to be an artist. So I went to Iowa State, went through that 4-year program, and then knew I wanted to get into a bigger city. So the Twin Cities was a great candidate because I could still go visit my family and see friends and stuff back home.
Yeah. Was there any sort of medium that you were particularly drawn to as an artist?
Yeah, in high school I was drawn to like yearbook. So really just the basic graphic design, print stuff.
Okay.
And then when I moved to Minneapolis, I worked at a handful of different agencies. So then I got into package design, web design. I was an art director, did a lot of social media and stuff like that.
Okay.
I loved it, and I still do love it. It's just I got really bad headaches from sitting at the computer all day long. And I think the part that was missing for me was the engagement with people. Like I would do all this work and spend all this time, but then when they would present the designs to the client, I didn't get to really engage or see the reaction. So now that I do real estate, that's like one of my favorite parts. It's just the engagement I get to have with people in the community.
Okay. So we'll get to real estate, but when you moved to the Twin Cities and you got into design, tell me, like, how did you get then from that, besides the headaches, to real estate?
Well, I grew up with my dad was a carpenter, and my brother is also a carpenter. So I was always around working with your hands and building and designing kitchens and things like that. And so for me, when I decided to buy my first house, it was back in 2013, I knew that I wanted to buy something that was kind of a fixer-upper. And I think that within me, I just always wanted a good deal too. And so I say, like, when I got into real estate, it was my first house that I bought, because I bought this foreclosed property, spent a handful of years fixing it up, DIY style, YouTubing my way through it, calling my dad for help. And it was really fun. And I think that's when I fell in love with real estate, because I was able to use my design background and kind of combine this hands-on approach where I could do both at the same time.
So where was that house?
It was in Northeast Minneapolis.
Okay.
Yep, just off of Lowry and Johnson Street.
How long did you own it?
I had that property from 2013 till 2018.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and then from there, it was just like I got addicted to it. So
So when you sold it, you listed it.
Yes.
By that point you were licensed.
Yes.
So you had to list it and sell it for yourself.
Yep.
Interesting. So was that did the spark for real estate just sort of it happened while you were putting that work in?
Well, I think it was a combination of things in my life, because not only was I getting headaches from the computer, but I was also just getting kind of frustrated, I think, with not being my own boss and doing my own thing. Because when I got my first job in design, it was 2007. And right after that, I saw all the people in the agency get laid off. And so it was just sort of like, I'm at the stake of all these owners and the way the business is going to go, and I don't have any security. So I was always kind of mulling around in my head, like, how am I going to create more job security? How am I going to create, and that's when I got into thinking about passive income and thinking about investing in real estate. And so I think that the combination of those things really sparked me into going full, like, all in.
And you had some other side income streams along the way. You were
So when the economy took a tank, the company I worked for at the time actually cut our hours back, so we were only working 4 days a week. And I had always wanted to do hair, so I decided to go to cosmetology school part-time. So it took me about 1.5 years to go to cosmetology school, and then I ran a little salon out of my house. I had about 30 clients, because at the time everybody was looking for alternatives for getting a more affordable their hair done. And so that was a business that I had for probably 3 years. It kept a lot of the relationships from when I worked at all the agencies. I kept in touch with all those people and really got to know them. And so it kind of snowballed from there, really.
Okay. So what did you take away from sort of that,
the salon?
Just kind of running your own business in a way and kind of doing that as
it was a very low risk entry point to running my own business, because if I failed, I still had a full-time job. But it taught me how to, like, run the numbers, make sure that I had, the right materials, and just make business decisions. And I really enjoyed it too. So it was kind of just like a fun passion project that I did on the side.
Okay. So they got the design piece, and then the sort of this small business piece, and then buying the house piece. And so they're all sort of coalescing to the point where you made the jump into real estate. Yeah.
And before I got my real estate license, I actually decided to brand my DIY house. I mean, it was such a basic thing. It's like so many people have done it, but I made a logo, I branded it, I called it High Five House. And I started a blog, and I started a YouTube channel, and then I started doing Instagram.
Your remodel?
Of the remodel,
okay.
Yeah. So it would just be like a time lapse of me knocking down a wall, or,
Sweet.
Like just behind the scenes of what am I going to do in this kitchen? And then just creating more engagement that way with my followers, because then it was just pulling people into that concept of, like, I'm into real estate.
Yeah. Well, and it's just visually, it's very captivating, right?
Yeah.
I think that's I have to admit, I am not a design guy. That's not my thing, but you see it, how people get captivated by beautiful pictures, by, nice kitchens, and just the progress.
Right.
The story that gets told from beginning to end.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people want to get into doing it, but they're just too intimidated. For me, like I said, I grew up with my dad doing it, so I didn't have a lot of fears. Yeah. And I think just sharing your story in that way behind the scenes kind of empowers your friends and family to be like, I can do that too.
Did dad and brother ever hop in the truck and drive up and help you out?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. They helped install, like, a heated floor. There was so many things I didn't know how to do that I just felt like I needed a professional. So they would come up and help many, many times.
But that's also, but it's crazy. It's like YouTube, like you can find just about anything if you want to.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Sometimes I think the challenge is just knowing what to type in the search function, because you're like, I don't know how to describe this thing that I'm looking at.
Yep. And then just reading the comments and seeing what other people have to say about that's wrong, or I wouldn't do it, like,
Right. As you look back on those last couple of years and went from working with your hands, building a home, to, hitting the streets and building a real estate business. Mm-hmm. What contributed to your success in building your business?
Well, because, I didn't have a lot of family or friends that lived in this. I mean, I have friends that live in the Twin Cities, but I think it's tough when you're first getting in to convince people like, oh, I was a designer and now I'm a real estate agent.
Totally.
And so for me, I knew I had to expand my sphere of people. So I literally did anything I could to get to meet people. Mm-hmm. And instead of making a goal for me to sell X amount of houses per year, I made it a goal to meet X amount of people per month. So my goal was to meet 20 strangers a month.
Interesting.
And I would go out to coffee, I would go out for a beer, and all I did was talk about real estate, like mostly investing. Okay. I really kind of focused on the Bigger Pockets website, which is like an investing platform. They have a blog and stuff, and I would private message. I would literally just go in there and search keywords like new investor looking to get into real estate, and I would private message these people and say, hey, I live in the Twin Cities. Do you want to go grab a cup of coffee and talk about real estate? And I built quite a few clients by doing that.
Okay, so Bigger Pockets is like a gathering space for people to share ideas in the investment world.
Yeah,
okay.
It started out as kind of a blog.
Got it.
Or a podcast, I think. And then it just kind of snowballed from there, where there's a forum now where you can have like your own profile. There's Brandon Turner has books. Mm-hmm. I mean, you can read lots of stuff from them too.
So we're having a drink right now. So what does it look like? How do you have that conversation with someone who's a novice thinking, well, I would love to get into investing in real estate, but I don't know anything about it?
Yeah. I think talking about goals is important. I kind of would share my story with people and say like, well, this is how I did it. You could do it like this if you wanted to. Mm-hmm. How much time do you have on your hands? Like, are you comfortable living with a roommate? Are you comfortable? They call it house hacking, like have a couple roommates or move in and then renovate as you're living there. So kind of figuring out like what their comfort level is and also how much money they have. Because, if you don't have capital, you have to get scrappy. And I think that's what got me into it is like I only had about $10,000 when I bought my first house. So I knew I had to do it all by, DIY. Mm-hmm. So we would just kind of talk about what they kind of had tolerance for and kind of where they saw themselves in 10 years. And then try to figure out, connecting them to a lender that would make sense and just keep in touch.
So I'm forgive me if I'm wrong, but are you kind of having a lot of success or meeting at this time anyway, mm-hmm. 2017, young professionals, maybe some discretionary income, probably just getting out of college, but they haven't started a family yet or other things, so they're flexible enough to. Honestly,
I wasn't that strategic at all.
Okay.
I literally was like, I will meet anybody. If you're 90 years old, I will meet you. Yeah. So I personally wanted to learn too. So if it wasn't somebody that I could see working with as an agent, I would maybe we could partner. Or maybe they could teach me something about real estate investing. So, I would go to meetups all the time and I would meet other people that were doing it for a lot longer or people that were doing commercial real estate. And I'd try to pick their brain on that. And so it was really just an exploratory thing for me.
Okay.
But I felt like it was multifaceted because, in real estate, you never know if somebody's going to call you from 5 years ago that you met and say, hey, I think I want to buy a house now.
Yeah.
So it was really just keeping the focus on meet as many people as possible and then just keep building that database of people.
I guess I was just thinking that I wish 26-year-old me getting out of law school would have had coffee with somebody like you because we look back and say, man, I wish we would have bought a duplex. Right? That first house could have been a duplex and we could have kept it.
Yeah. For
and
sure.
I think you sometimes have to teach people to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Right? They have the ability, but they maybe don't have the courage to do it unless someone can lay it all out for them.
Well, and I have to be a little careful too because I have had have people come to me and just say, I will literally do whatever you tell me to do. And they want me to make every decision for them. They want me to tell them like how much money to put down. And it's like, at some point you have to give them the resources for them to just make their own decisions, because it's too much pressure on my back to say, do this or that, it's just too much.
Right.
So
have you been working on any projects lately, like in the last year?
Yes.
How's it been?
Yes.
And I'm saying this coming from a person, I'm going through a kitchen remodel that was supposed to be done months ago, and it's not. I mean, the inflation and sort of the supply chain dynamics, those things are real. Are there any stories you've got for us? Yeah.
So once I sold that first property in 2018, I pretty much bought I would call it a significant rehab project each year. So alongside having my full-time real estate business and working with buyers and sellers, I also would be renovating a project, and it would take anywhere from 5 to 10 months to do these projects. So this past year I bought probably my biggest one yet. I felt like I built a house, but it was built in 1900. So I was working from old bones, an older foundation, and literally gutted it, put all new HVAC, electrical, plumbing, drywall, the whole shebang. And it was really tough. I got really burnt out. The trades are really challenging right now. Material costs were double, triple. Waiting, the first thing we ordered were windows, and we had to wait 4 months for windows. So it's just, you have to really be prepared in the landscape of what's going on right now with supply.
What is the financial structure? Is this like a rehab loan or something like that you would, that's the way that you'd sort of fund the project and fund the purchase? Yeah,
so I've been using commercial loans, and I've been doing construction loans on top of those. Okay. So I put 20% down, and then we build the rehab cost into the loan. And it works out well for me because the rehabs are such a large scale and the value that I'm getting these properties at is so low that I'm able to build quite a bit of equity in.
Are they able to value it based upon the end design?
Yep. Yeah. So I present to the appraiser sometimes it's a visual, like I'll Photoshop, like this is what the kitchen's going to look like, and try to get them jazzed up about it, because they're going off of the final look and like the overall completed project when they're appraising it.
And that's a benefit of going with a commercial loan. Is it?
You can do a conventional construction loan too.
Okay.
I just do the commercial one because the guidelines are a little bit more lenient. Commercial lenders aren't as strict when it comes to making sure you have licensed contractors on everything. Not that I don't I pull permits for everything, but one thing I learned is if you are the homeowner, the property's in my name, I can pull my own building permits. So I act as my own general contractor, which saves me a lot of money.
Sure.
If I had it in an LLC, a licensed contractor would have to pull their permits, and essentially that would be, a GC running the project.
Right. So are you moving into these properties? Do you sit on them for 2 years and then get to get the benefit of the no capital gains, or are you turning around and selling them?
So I don't really sell. I just buy and hold.
Oh, okay.
And I rent them out. So I basically focus on high-end rentals. I'm looking for a renter that's willing to pay a pretty good premium because I fully renovate them and I design them so nicely that they fly off the shelf, essentially. Cool. That's my goal.
Okay.
And I kind of treat it like when I do real estate and I have an open house and there's a line of people walking out, standing out this front door waiting to get in. And so usually I don't have to spend a lot of time finding a renter. But yeah, to answer your question, I've done a combination of living in them. I do live in the duplex that I just finished renovating.
Got it.
Some I haven't though.
Okay. So how is that life as a landlord?
The renter, my audience that I'm trying to rent to is a higher end professional. They can be more picky But I generally just like to keep my rentals really nice. So
Sure.
I think that as a real estate agent, we're already familiar with forms, and I just use the standard Minnesota lease form, and I haven't really had any issues. I should be knocking on wood, but yeah.
So there you go. But I mean, I guess and since you had done all this work relatively recently, and with quality materials and stuff like that,
Yeah.
Wear and
they're
tear is
pretty good to
minimal,
go.
not a lot of clogged toilets and stuff like that because it's all
Yep.
new.
I mean, I am
plumbing.
buying older properties, so I have had like sewer issues before where I had a sewer backup once. That wasn't fun, but you learn as you go, and I think just, I try to keep a really good relationship with my tenants.
Sure.
I've actually had tenants that have worked with me and bought a house. So, the goal is to always keep a good relationship because you never know,
Yeah.
where it could lead to.
Will that continue to be your goal to acquire one rehab project per year?
Well, my goal was basically to have $1,000 per month of passive income. And I didn't really care where I got it from. So it could either be a rental, it could be a side project, it could be, the rentals make sense for me because they produce great income. But I used to think, I want like 20 rentals. And once you get into it, you realize, quality is better than quantity.
Sure.
And if I could just have 5 that produce really good income, that's good enough for me. So, but it definitely creates kind of a safety net, like that security I was talking about earlier, where if the real estate market shifts and goes in a place where I'm not doing as many transactions in a year, I can lean back on that passive income.
And it's continued. You're at least paying off the loans, and you're just
right, building
up
appreciation,
building in equity into that asset over the long term.
Yep.
What do you want to do with that $1,000? Like, what do you do when you're not designing homes? And
well, for anybody that owns rentals, that it's good to keep a little buffer because the furnace could go out or whatever. But there's everybody always talks about retiring, and I basically just want freedom to say, maybe when I'm 40 or maybe when I'm 50, I might want to just take a little sabbatical, or I might want to go spend time with my family and take a break. I don't see myself never not working, but I think just building up that nest egg and having something on the back end that's working for me is just going to give me more options.
Sure.
So, but I'll always be working, in some capacity, I could imagine. Just because I love it too.
Right. Do you get any chance to spend any time being an artist?
It's a good question.
I don't know how to. What is that? Doing?
Yeah.
I don't want to say doing art because I feel like that's a very inaccurate way to phrase.
I know
that.
it is kind of weird to say. I struggle with it because the last year was really hard for me. This project was I was super busy, and I just kind of got burnt out a little bit, and I'm really trying to find time to go back and do design and art. And I've never really had like a strong identity with my real estate business. So this fall and winter, I'm going to be focusing on kind of rebranding and kind of reinventing myself a little bit.
Okay.
So usually when I feel inspired, it's when I have a break. So I have to kind of force myself to get out into nature or do something like that to get re-inspired again.
They say walking barefoot in nature reconnects you with the earth.
Right.
Should do that probably not every day, once a month maybe.
Not anytime soon. The weather changing.
Maybe in June. No, but I feel like, especially with the arts, and but it can also be like fitness and stuff too. It's a muscle, right? And if you let that atrophy for a while, you can't just dive in again and just do it, right? You have to build that stamina because it takes a lot of energy, whether it's mental or whatever, physical, to put towards that. And you just have to carve out time for it too,
exactly.
Right?
That's the hardest part for me, is just finding the time. But
so do you think this rebrand of yours is going to be an opportunity to tap into that a little bit?
Yeah, definitely. I have been a solo agent for the last 4 or 5 years, and I'm at a point where if I continue this trend of buying a property and maintaining my workload, I just need help.
Okay.
And so I have decided to either get an admin or somebody that it also has creative background to kind of tag team it.
Okay.
And I think what I'm doing okay right now is just social media. Like I bring people behind the scenes, and that seems to be working really well on my rehab projects. But as far as other touch points, I mean, I know what I could be doing because I've done it. Like I used to work in the marketing field,
Right.
and I want to be doing more. All of my clients have just been referred to me. So I haven't had to go out and advertise and do those things. So
Which is, I mean, really impressive for a transplant. Like a so you can't go back and say, well, like at least I build a business out of my hometown,
right,
or my high school class, or even my college, right?
Right.
They're all
Yep.
pools of people that are not here in the industry, in the market where you're practicing as a realtor, and so
Yep.
to build off of referrals alone is a strong indication of what kind of service you provide.
Yeah.
What is it that you think makes you stand apart as a realtor?
Well, I think my creativity has helped. I have done my own staging. I've always just been a very DIY minded person. And so I built an inventory of staging. I have my own storage unit. I'm starting to learn though that the staging, I'm consolidating that side of my business just because it hasn't been profitable. But when I talk to new clients, one of the first things we talk about is my background in renovating and how when we're walking through a house, I can help them visualize, I can help them understand the costs associated with a project. And if needed, I can pull a contractor or somebody that has more experience than me in as kind of like a second opinion.
Okay.
And that has really helped a lot of my clients feel confident in, even just when I post stuff on social media, they'll see like, oh, what's that paint that you're using, or products that I've used, so I can kind of share real world things that I've used.
So in the last couple years, trying to find a diamond in the rough, has it been challenged? Like, I mean, it seems like everything has been, selling at above market. I mean, were you still just having to find a good deal on a really rough piece of property?
So when I first got my real estate license, like I said, I was very scrappy with meeting people and strangers. I did like everything. I door knocked, I cold called, I did it all. And I looked on Craigslist every single day. And I reached out to people on Craigslist that had for sale by owners. And I actually got one of my last properties from somebody, and it was somebody that I met like years prior. So it took like 2 years to even formulate the deal. It was just constant like, hey, would you like to sell this year? Hey, winter's coming. Do you want to sell again? And just keeping in touch with that person. And then that person told me that their dad was selling. So I've been able to find some off-market deals just by being a little bit more scrappy. The last property that I bought was through another agent, and it was a property that had a lot, like the family lived there for a long time, so it was filled with stuff. Like it was just packed with furniture and belongings. And I just said, hey, I'll buy it like that. Don't put it on the MLS. They don't need to do anything. They just sell it to me like that.
They don't have to clear out any of the stuff.
I took all the stuff and, we dealt with it. But finding ways to just constantly remind people that you buy houses, I think is the biggest key factor. It's like all my friends know that I do this, and I constantly ask people, I've walked my dog through the streets and written down addresses and gone home and looked up property owners, so
because it had because the lawn wasn't mowed.
Exactly. Yeah. And there's wholesalers and people that are trying to find good deals, but I think the relationship, even with a homeowner, like I know that that's how I've gotten off-market deals before, is I'll tell them like, hey, I'm not a big company. I'm just a single lady trying to DIY my way through life, and they think it's endearing, and they're like, I'd rather give this property to you than some like big company.
Well, and they can. I have to imagine they also, if you're showing them what you've done.
Not in every case.
Not in every case?
No.
But I mean, because if you put a lot of good work into it and they can see the end result that you care about.
Yeah.
That what you're producing at the end of this is quality. Right?
I mean, I usually will tell people like, I'm probably just going to move in and like fix it up. And, they kind of like that idea.
Got it.
So.
Got it.
Especially if it's a property that's been in a family for a really long time, there's typically a lot of sentimental value. And I've even told owners like, if you want to come back and look at it when I'm done, like give me a call. Like, you can come check it out anytime, stop by.
Okay.
So trying to just make it feel, like I'm not just gonna flip their house and make a bunch of money.
Right. Right. Yeah. So now as we're looking ahead, and I think everyone is anticipating, obviously with winter coming as we're recording this in October, winter is coming. Rates are up. We're seeing listings have price reductions and things like that. Are you anticipating opportunity to is that like the worst thing ever, that the idea that there could be opportunity? Now you gotta I can see it in your face.
Well,
like you got to build the energy up if the right thing came across your desk, or
I think it's different for my clients versus me, because I'm working with a lot of investors who are just getting into it, and they don't have a lot of capital to put down. So they're really in a bind because, some of the lower down payment programs have higher rates right now. Mm-hmm. And especially for investment rates, those are even higher. So, for me personally, I'm going to keep looking, and I'm considering maybe putting more cash down so that I don't have as much of a loan.
Yeah.
But I think there's opportunity in any market, really. I think as long as you're keeping a good perspective on the fact that real estate appreciates, and if you just, and my game has always been the long term too. So even if I bought high today, in 20, 30 years, it'll all work out.
Yeah. And that's exactly right. I mean, it's hard for a lot of us to think about even the medium long term. But I mean, if you acquired a property now, where because the rates are at such a high number, it's about like $1,000 more maybe than they would have been anticipating in a monthly payment versus a year ago. Mm-hmm. In a couple of years, 1, 2, 3 years, something like that, if rates get back down to that number, you can refi out of that. But now you have the asset you own it. Yep. And now you have that $1,000 that you've already been budgeting for that you can potentially play with in a remodel or something else like that, right? Yeah. But it's a matter, you have to be setting the tone for that now. Or maybe I should say a savvy investor might do that now, as opposed to just waiting to buy in 3 years. Right. When, who knows?
Well, it's for somebody that doesn't have a lot of money to put down. What I've been saying is we don't know where the rates are going to go. Mm-hmm. So if you buy a house today and the rates go up, you're going to wish 2 years from now you would have bought today. Mm-hmm. And if the rates go back down, you can just refinance. So as long as, and to your point about being young, if you would have just bought when you were 24, even if it was a high market, you'd be okay today. Mm-hmm. So I just think for younger people who I'm helping and I've helped people in their early 20s buy duplexes for the first time, which is so cool to see. Yeah. I just keep saying, just do it. Just do it.
Yes.
You're not going to regret it.
100 million, 1,000%. It's like, yes, that is that's
especially if you're living there, like if they're going to move in and have a roommate, or they're going to rent one side, that's still going to be cheaper than renting, where their money is not going to go anywhere.
For sure.
It is scary for a lot of people though right now, and change is always hard, but I think if you just consider the long game and you look at history, it's going to be okay.
Yeah, well, I'll be fine.
Yeah.
Lindsay said
Don't worry about it.
We'll be fine. Well, as we wrap up, as you think about your life and how you've sort of gotten to be where you are today, is there anybody who's in your life along the way that you want to acknowledge and sort of and appreciate for their contribution to your life and your success?
Good question. Yeah, I want to give a shout out to Heather Foss. She's a Remax agent. I actually was talking to her last night. She started this meetup back in like 2014 or 15 that I went to before I was really even that into investing. I was just getting into it. And I always admired her because she's always given me advice. She's been through a recession, so she has worked with the hard situations. And she's just a great person. She always picks up her phone when I have a question. Even like late last night at like 9 o'clock, I called her.
Awesome.
So she's been great. There's a lot of people that I've met that are investors that just blow my mind. That I can't believe how quickly they've scaled their business. But yeah.
Okay. Well, thanks, Heather. Shout out to you. Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming in today. Thanks for the conversation. I hope there's some people that'll hear this and be inspired to take the leap, and they know who to call if they wanted to get a little design assistance and do a rehab project.
For sure. We can grab coffee. We can talk design. Do it all.
All right. Thank you, Lindsey.
Cool. Yeah. Thanks, Ed.